Hello, Humi, and welcome back to the main channel. Ooh. I only had 16 YouTube channels, now I've got 17. Whole video on that will be arriving short. Today we're back with the podcast more interviews. Stay tuned for Friday and stay tuned to take some interesting pieces of information or videos will be out. Anyway, today I'm joined by a very special guest. He's best known for writing Doctor Who with Big Finish. It's one and only John Dorney.
Oh, I'm cheering myself. Hello. Thank you for having me.
So we'll start at the very beginning because it's always a very good place to start.
Some goes, yes.
Julie Andrews was correct when she said that. How did you get into the wonderful world of writing?
Well, I kind of always did it. I wrote lots and lots when I was at school, and I would always write things there. And when I went to drama school, where I sort of trained up to be an actor, I ended up kind of like writing things all the time, little sketches for things. And we do things called like a fight exam, where you basically do stage fight, and you have to write a script for those. And I ended up writing scripts for other people to do. And they'd always be quite surprisingly overplotted and full of, relatively fun dialogue. And it just meant that pretty much it was always in the back of my head to try and write something. I think I attempted writing a play when I was about 16 or 17 that wasn't very good. Very heavily influenced by Harold Pinter, and not in a good way. I love Harold Pinter, but yeah, this was somebody just tried to be Harold Pinter. And then I left drama school, and I just wasn't employed for about like 4 or 5 months, and thought, I'll try and write a play. And I wrote a play, and the play did relatively well. It was on a festival at the Royal Court Theatre in London after a couple of years, part of the Young Writers Festival. And I wouldn't say I exactly didn't look back from that point on, but certainly that gave me a credibility when I was sending things out. And then it just sort of expanded from there. I wrote radio sketches, which meant when I eventually sort of got into doing the Big Finish stuff, I knew how to work audio quite well even before starting, because I'd done 3 years of a sketch show recorded for training purposes. It was great fun. Where cast included, such sort of current luminaries as the delightful Ingrid Oliver out of Unit, and as well also Ben Wilbond, who's now best known for doing like ghosts and horrible histories. But yeah, then that kind of led into me sort of pitching to write Doctor Who and being kind of taken seriously. When I kind of like started emailing them and going, oh yeah, no, it looks like you might actually be able to do this. Ended up getting in to do Sapphire and Steel, and from there that led to Doctor Who.
Yeah. And before you got to work on Doctor Who, were you a fan of the TV show?
Oh yes, yeah. I jokingly once said I think it's technically sort of the love of my life, and I'm not 100% sure that is a joke. It was basically I've been watching it since the repeat in the 5 Faces of Doctor Who season of Carnival of Monsters in sort of something like 1980 or 81. So it was pretty much a child of the Davison era. And it's fascinating. A few days ago, for various reasons, I was rewatching Kinder, which I haven't seen in a long time, and that's one of the more sort of rounded to my memory stories of my childhood, both sort of seeing as I think it was repeated as well. I think I had a repeat transmission. I watched both. But yeah, it's sort of always been there in my life. I think when it got to being the novels, I kind of drifted a bit, because then I read a good chunk of the novels. I think most of the New Adventures, Missing Adventures. I then just started getting behind quite a bit, because it was roughly when I went to drama school. I was busy doing other things. And once you got a bit behind, you're like miles behind. I'm still sort of reading some of the books I got, and I some of them are older, like the 20 years, and I bought them 20 years ago, and I just haven't got around to reading it. And just every now and then I go, okay, let's bump in this one, whichever one. I'm trying to remember which one it was. I just read recently The Face Eater. I just read The Face Eater, which I think I bought roughly when it came out or shortly afterwards. Things like that. And but then the audio coming out got me kind of back into it, because I'd left drama school. And I had a bit more time, and they took less time to do. And there was a theoretical chance I could be involved in some way, because at this point I was an actor and doing some writing as well, very quickly within the time frame. So that kind of sort of renaissance really.
And through your career at Big Finish, you've done a multitude of different projects. But what do you prefer doing? Do you prefer writing the scripts yourself or script editing?
Oh, I mean, mainly writing them themselves because you've got sort of the control and a sense of you get to be the first person in the audience in a way. Is the view I think of it with. I have basically the best seats in the house. I get to be the first person to hear these lines, these jokes, to get to understand this story, and it can be agonising at points. Coming up with the storyline is like hell on earth for me. I know some people can like come up with storylines very quickly. There was at least one day when we needed one from Justin Richards quite quickly, and he sent something back within a day that was great. And I was thoroughly sickened by that. But the scripting bit, the actual writing down the words, is usually the fun part. Not always. Sometimes, for whatever reason, you don't quite connect with the script, even if you're really excited by the storyline. For whatever reason, when you're actually typing it, you go, "Oh, I don't really." There's something alchemical happens. Script editing wise, I mean, that's probably less fun because you're usually reading things and kind of trying to be critical and trying to be effectively the intelligent listener / viewer / whatever. But every now and then that can be really rewarding because there've been a few times when I feel that there's a story which was really good that I nudged up to being great, because I think that's the best you can ever do as a script editor. It's tricky. It's tricky to, I mean, I don't want to. Some personalities, I kind of think it sounds a bit harsh, but I think you can nudge a script up a few steps. So if it's not working, then you can nudge it up to being solid enough. But there are one or two where if it's already really good, you can knock it up a notch. And there's like about 2 or 3 of those where I feel that I was just able to give them that extra little kick to them at the moment, and that's when it's really satisfying. And there's a lot of them I think I kind of nudged into the right place, and that's always sort of fun. But yeah, I think probably the scripting is probably what I prefer, really. Yes.
And once you've done and you've written the script, do you go to the recording to watch all the actors perform your work?
Used to. Often it's sort of down the line listening in. And yeah, it's an odd one really, because you kind of I think there's a value to that, but it's mainly just to it's still a job. It's not kind of I don't want to sort of be turning up there just to laugh at my own jokes. I'm largely there to pay attention and try and keep an ear out for mistakes or things I might have done wrong. Because if you're hearing it, sometimes it leaks out at you a bit. I'm not always able to attend online. I'm not always able to attend in person. But it can prove helpful. And there have been a few options of actually swinging by the actual recording relatively recently. It's often I do, and it doesn't mean that I kind of met up with lots of people. I often did when I was working at Tom Baker Adventures. I would effectively be like a chauffeur because I had a car and I wasn't too far away, so I'd pick people up from the station. And that was good because that really was an introduction to a lot of the writers. Where for example, I think that's where I first met Roy Gill, because Roy lives, I think, Edinburgh, and he came down for the Tom Baker recording of. Actually, I think it's in I think it's The Wizard of Time, which is weird because it's like a long time ago, and it's now only now coming out, because I think we recorded it in 2018 or 2019 or something like that. And it's the first time I met Roy. First time I met Rob Valentine was down in Wadhurst at the recording studio down there, and I was only there largely because I was the script editor, so it wasn't on scripts I'd done. Every now and then, I think I'd also swing in. There are various casts and crews where we got on terribly well. Like I think I went in one day for one of Matt's recordings of Unit, or just go for a pint with everyone afterwards, and just not to actually listen to any of the recordings, which was great fun, to be honest. Because there are lots of people in that who love me, and just good eggs.
And do you have a favourite Doctor that you've written for? Is like the Doctor that you really love coming up with adventures for?
I mean, in a weird sort of way, no. I mean, I kind of love all of them. I feel I've got a certain affinity for most of them. I haven't done Colin much, which always feels a little bit of a surprise to me, because I think I've only done him about 2.5 times, depending on how much you count his little cameo Beautiful Things. I think it's just the Fourth Wall and Dust Devil. I may be wrong on that. I kind of lose track. but yeah, there's a lot of similarities between. So it's always quite. I like the Doctor as a character, and there's always something fun about writing them. I feel that most of them come quite easily to me, but they all come in a slightly different way. And you get slightly different places. And there's a couple that I think are relatively. I think McGann and Tom Baker have a very similar vibe as a voice, which, given I think they're both from Liverpool, is perhaps not insanely surprising. But Sylvester is like dropping Bon Mo, and I had a lot of fun writing Chris Eccleston. So I kind of enjoy whichever one I'm doing, and it's also quite nice to have a bit of variety with that, because it's quite nice to come back to one and just go, oh yeah, this is how this guy sounds. This is how this guy sounds, and you miss them after a while if you've been away for a bit, and it's exciting to kind of just find your way back into those characters, because I generally love all the characters. Yeah.
And from the stories you've written for the Doctors, do you have a favourite one that you re-listen to and go, oh, I love that?
Oh, God, I tend not to re-listen to them. I listen to them every now and then. I will re-listen to them if for whatever. Weirdly, I like re-listened to one yesterday because I was trying to remember a detail from just a random companion chronicle. It was so strange, like listening to the beginning of it, kind of go, I remember nothing about this. Now I've seen it, I remember it. That's kind of amazing. But it's sort of weird listening back to them, because they are a very small snapshot of my life, each one by one. That you sort of kind of forget there, and then every now and then you just remind it. Every now and then I get the urge to listen to one for whatever reason. I think there are a few where I think I've listened to them again on the basis of like playing them to people. If people are kind of interested in hearing them, you go, well, okay, which ones do I pick? Kind of usually it'd be something like Infamy of the Zaros, because that's got people they've heard of, and it's quite standalone and short. So if people want to hear one, that's one of my examples. I think Monsters in Metropolis is probably going to join that as well, where it's that you're vaguely aware of it. It makes a lot of sense. Whereas there are a few others where you're going to go, well, I'm not going to send them down the road of Doom coverage, because a lot of that, there's a lot of listening to do around that, and that wouldn't make anyone. But every now and then I might get the urge to listen to one. I suspect, because I'm sort of up to my knees in Doctor Who, and I'm trying to listen to the audios Big Finish have released that I haven't heard yet. It'll be a while before I kind of, but they'll be, I'll have them for my dotage. I'll kind of go, oh yeah, I remember doing that vaguely.
And from your range, that's correct word, of Doctor Who stuff, you've also done some Doctor Who spin-offs.
Yes.
Particular spin-offs that you're most proud of?
In terms of like individual episode, or like
as in like box set wise.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's a few. I really had a great time doing the couple of Missy stories I did. In particular, the very first one I did with her and Rufus. And there's a few others where I was immensely pleased with my sort of episode of Lady Christina. We did the very first one of those I did, because I think they sent it out as an example of the tone, but they're going, oh no, they felt like no, it's so kind of right what it should be. They just sent it out and go, this is what we're kind of aiming for. I had an absolutely delightful time writing that one. And I kind of love all of them. Again, it's always just nice writing these things and getting them performed by good actors and do sort of fun things. And a lot of the time with a lot of spin-offs, the characters are just so rich and vibrant that that's kind of hard to write. I think in terms of like a lot of them, I'm quite proud of things like Countermeasures and Robots, where I sort of steered the story on a bit and like the overall thing. So because I scripted those as well as writing some of the episodes. So I was at least part of figuring out where the story happened and where it went. So by and large, I'm it's whichever one I've just done is the one I'm kind of proudest of most of the time.
And because you've got like this endless career and you've got so much praise from people online, do you have a spin-off that you want to do, that like your dream spin-off to write for?
Oh, as in Doctor Who?
Yeah.
I mean, I think we kind of. I think I've covered most of them. I wouldn't mind writing a Paternoster Gang episode at some point. And fingers crossed that happens. It's been on the schedules at some point, but then just for whatever reason got busy doing other things. There's not one. I mean, I always quite fancied the idea of a Duggan series because I kind of thought I knew what I would like it to be. I thought it would be quite fun to have it a bit Inspector Gadget. Just this idea of Duggan kind of running around and having a somewhat more competent sidekick helping him out, and them just fighting crime. I tend to kind of really want to have them make sure they have their own identity. I don't think a spin-off should be like Doctor Who just without the Doctor in it. So, and there are some, for example, I mean, I'm not sure about this. One of the ones that's commonly cited as an idea is people will suggest the idea of the Clara and Ashford spin-off. And that kind of doesn't appeal to me because I always kind of think, well, I don't know what that would be other than Doctor Who with two people who can't die. But at the same time, that's just a lot of these times anyone says, oh, you've done this one, it's a spin-off too far or whatever. I'm always aware of that bit going, yeah, for you maybe. So that's an idea which I can't quite process, but that doesn't mean somebody else couldn't do a really good idea with it. And just because I can't figure out a way to make it work, there's bound to be someone else who could. And somebody might be able to present me the idea going, here's how we do this, let's do this. So I don't want to be, dismissive of any ideas, but that I wouldn't mind. I talked about recently about, I had an idea for an Unbound that I really wanted to do, which was I wanted to do what if Doctor Who wasn't a science fiction show, and we'd do it as a Western with the English Doctor encountering the Orton boys and helping out Sheriff Stewart with his battle against the minister. And it was all, it kind of feels like that's one I'd love to do at some point. I don't know if I'll be allowed to. There's like a big selection about like 7 or 8 ideas, and you kind of go, at some point I might be allowed to do that. So I've got that if there's ever a chance. And but I think we all kind of have those sort of projects, the sort of the dream projects, and and some that some people allow you to do, and then others you got to go, no, not allowed. Got a celebrity historical I really want to do at some point, which is just a little bit excessive and problematic. Not in that's problematic sounds really weird, but there's reasons why some people, when I pitch them the idea, go, really? You want to do that? And go, yes, because I think it would be amazing. And I think I might have finally found somebody who goes, yeah, maybe you can do that. So we'll see if that kind of works out.
And a few years ago, I think that is correct. There was rumours, very loose rumours, something I only ever saw in one article. There was possibly going to be a Young Doctor spin-off if the American version had come to light. And if Big Finish decided to do that, what would you reckon the series would entail?
As in, like having him left Gallifrey.
Well, him and the child when he was as a child, like young Sheldon.
Oh yeah, okay. I mean, I think that's got to be kind of. It's a weird one, really, because again, I wanted to have to not be just like standard Doctor Who with like a young guy. Because how to differentiate? And I suppose it is him kind of finding his way in the universe and figuring out who he is. I think that's the route of prequels, isn't it? I mean, I don't think you kind of want to go the full solo route of explaining absolutely everything. So you don't want him to be like finding the TARDIS, but I think it would be probably thinking about it, you'd have to have it be a gang of Time Lord Academy kids, and you'd have to have him and the Master really, possibly the Rani on the outside. And the clash inherently involved in the two of them, I think. But beyond that, wouldn't be I think that's the way to go. I think they'd have to actually be going on field trips or something like that. I don't think you could have it too much on Gallifrey, just the two of them. And maybe you could. I don't know. Yeah, I think you'd certainly need the Doctor and the Master, and then see what else you've got going beyond that.
And not only in the world of the page have you done standard and out of era Doctor Who, what's your favourite non-Doctor Who project you've actually worked on?
Big Finish, probably the Avengers, where that was always great fun to do. I remember literally having the discussion about the first sort of box sets we're doing, the adapted missing episodes, and there was a I remember having a conversation where I don't know who you'd get to play the roles, and David said, "Well, I was thinking of Julia Morden and Anthony Howe," and I just went, "Yeah, that'll work." And it was there's literally spot on as that. And, Julian in particular is very close to his Steed in sort of general personality ones, in a way that Patrick Macnee and Steed were fairly indivisible. And yeah, I got to kind of write several of those and have a lot of fun with those. Most recent one I got to write a part specifically for Paul O'Grady to play because he was such a big Avengers fan, and it came out 1 week before Paul O'Grady died. So that fake moment, you go, I hope he heard it. I hope he got the chance to actually hear it. Yeah, the Avengers is very much, and then I had the privilege of working with Sam Clements on that, so having the direct link to his father Brian, who did so many of the original episodes. All of that was a sort of solid, amazing connection to have.
And as we've learned already during this interview that you're a Doctor Who fan, what are your hopes for the 60th anniversary specials on TV?
I mean, again, I don't know. I mean, I've seen, obviously, I'm aware of the Star Beast, and I know some of the plotting of the Star Beast. So, it's a weird one, really, because there was so much about the Power of the Doctor that had sort of anniversary special vibes. So it's kind of trying to find a new angle, and I think I've got the vague sense of what it could be, celebrating the obscure corners of the universe. So a lot of the things I might have previously wished for. I think, when everyone was talking about the 50th, I thought, I was going, well, what I want more than anything is William Russell in some capacity. And it kind of feels like, well, just had that. It would seem weird to do it again now. I think it's got. I just kind of wanted to be sort of fun and a laugh and something that excites the country. I think I'm excited about that. I'm excited about the 14th season and the new Doctor. Every sort of new photo or bit of trivia you find out just makes me get terribly excited and think this looks like it's going to be so amazing. Just something that surprises me and excites me. That's kind of what I want.
And I think for the 70th anniversary, going far ahead, I reckon they should recreate the Unearthly Child and make it into a whole weird scenario of him accidentally bumped into trying not to bump into himself several times.
That could kind of work, yeah. I feel something like that could be fun.
And are you working on any brand new sets you're allowed to talk about within the world of Doctor Who at the moment?
I mean, I suppose I can probably. I think the one that I can probably mention is I wrote in about February this year, which has just been announced, which is I think the set's called In the Bleak Midwinter. And I've got the opening one of those, which is the second of the Eighth Doctor and Audacity sets that we've got coming out in sort of November and December. And mine, as I say, is called 24 Doors in December. And it's out in December. And it's got a nominal Christmas theme. In fact, they're all kind of winter themed, hence the title In the Bleak Midwinter, which I think was largely down to me coming up with an idea and saying, when's this out? Is this out in December? I go, yeah, then I'm doing Christmas. With the Eighth Doctor, which is not for the first time I've done a Christmas story with the Eighth Doctor, and as with my previous Christmas story with the Eighth Doctor, there is at least one reference in it to chimes at midnight, because chimes off, yeah. So I wanted to say chimes at midnight, I'm going, no, that's something different. Just because obviously Rob is the top dog and absolutely you doff your cap to Rob. And chimes is such a glorious thing that even vaguely playing in the same sandpit as that makes me feel like I've got to reference the legend that is chimes. And so that is a Christmas special. It's got a lovely guest actor in it. In fact, at least two sort of really lovely guest actors in it. Both of them have done Doctor Who on TV. I think I can say that. But I can't really specify more than that. It's a character. It involves one of them in particular plays a character who's probably the best part of the episode, including the regular team. So yes.
And because you've worked on Big Finish for such a long time, how does the writing process go from writing it to being heard by the public? How far of a distance is all
Oh,
that?
I mean, it's incredibly variable. So the thing with I was talking with my ex girlfriend, who sort of was part of the inspiration of 24 Doors in December for varying reasons. And she was going, "Oh my goodness, that's quick! That's out already." And I went, "Yeah." But then the one I've been writing before that, which in varying ways was part of the root of the inspiration. I think that recorded like a week ago, and that's not going to be out, I think, till next year. And I'm trying to work back at where there are various other ones where I've written them over a year ago, and for various reasons they haven't recorded yet. And so there's no hard and fast rule to how long it takes. Yeah, sometimes it takes forever, sometimes it's like months, and you kind of juggle it around. So yeah, I think like London Orbital from last year, I wrote early last year, and then the stories around it, I again haven't come out yet or even been announced yet in some cases.
And what is like the most fun part of working at Big Finish?
Well, a few things. One, I really just like writing the scripts. I like so not so much the storylines. Writing the scripts is the fun bit. But to be honest, the thing I really like is the other writers. We generally speaking get on terribly well, and it's just a really solid, sort of lovely, creative bunch of people who are terribly supportive and friendly, and also just kind of just funny and smart. So you can like send a message out onto the WhatsApp group and find some kind of delightful response, or any query you've got, somebody will come back to help you out. Or if you're disgruntled about something, someone will kind of throw you a bone. And it's just a bunch of people where you kind of know in the right time, in the right place, with the right people, they've got my back, and they are some really amazing people who are just a delight to work with. This is why I've ended up doing this sort of sponsored 10K run, which was suggested by Lisa McMullen. And we're kind of looking forward to just being a gang of 6 of us doing this run, but mainly looking forward to, because we're like sharing an Airbnb for the weekend, which should be kind of probably not terribly destructive on the Friday night, but on the night after the run, I imagine it'll be problematic. Yeah, that'll be it's getting up on Sunday will not be easy.
And with like Big Finish being such a popular thing, and so many people buying so many, as you can sort of see the staff running out of room, because I'm running out of room for most things in this room. What is your like feedback on that? What's your thoughts on how the fans react? Do you like it when you hear thoughts from the fans?
Oh, I mean, yeah, I mean, people are very positive and very kind, and will send messages all the time. I'm always very keen to emphasize that I am, in effect, a professional fan fiction writer. I kind of don't like having too much of a distinction. It's why I really enjoy like a Big Finish day, because everyone is basically the same. It's all a bunch of fans. Just some of them are on stage talking to the other fans, but we're all the same tribe. Yeah, I like being part of that community, and the fan base is very positive and very lovely, and everyone seems to be we all have a shared sort of thing we care about. So it's like swinging by any sort of convention, it's very easy to just like get talking to anyone, because anyone we have a shared interest in the thing we all love.
Yeah. And what's your favorite part of being at Big Finish Day?
Oh, I think it is just like, well, it's the direct connection with people. It's usually signing things, not so much for the egotism of like, oh, somebody asked me for autograph, but it's the fact that somebody come along and you can just chat with them for a while, and they will generally say nice things about what you've done, which is kind of a delightful way into it anyway. But it's also it's so kind of rare from anything artistically you do, that you get such sort of direct feedback from the audience, because you'll usually have feedback from your friends or relatives about things, and that's filtered through them being your friends or relatives. But so it's just nice there to be an actual dialogue between the listeners and the production. And yeah, so there's something so nice about just actually meeting people and discussing these things. And that's the bit I really like.
And when writing these scripts and like not just the Doctors but for other people, do you get to meet some of the cast that are going to appear in the audio?
Not whilst writing it. No, I mean a lot of them I already have, obviously, and but not always. There are a few I've never met. I think I've like missed Michelle Ryan at several parties, and various other people. Well, Christopher Eccleston, I've like heard down the line, but I've never actually been in the same room as him. And to be fair, that's also true of some of the actors. Some of the actors have been, in the same story together, but never actually met, because that's just sometimes the way the recordings go. And in some cases, these people sort of got to be friends of mine. I mean, I had this slightly weird thing last year when I was on tour in a production of Boeing, and on the same night in Eastbourne, I had both sort of Fraser Hines and Louise Jameson turn up, sort of independently, which is just this slightly weird thing. Imagine that for my teenage self. Go. Oh, you'll be in a production of this French farce, and you'll have two different Doctor Who companions turn up to see you because they're your friends, and so it's stuff like that. But a lot of the time, I mean, when I'm writing it, I often, if I know who it is playing it, I can hear their voice and write for their voice. But then one of the good things about the actors is they've also always come in and find a new angle and surprise you, and take it to a very different place, basically.
And from the actors that you've met, do you ever get starstruck when meeting them for the first time?
Not for a long time. I think the very first ones I ever met were the cast of Saffron Seal, which was like David Warner and Susanna Harker and Sam Kelly and David Horowitz, and also Joanna Tinsey. But Joanna Tinsey was the only one I'd not like been a big fan of when I was a kid, because David Horowitz was like in the Miss Marple series I loved as a kid. Sam Kelly was great in The Lower Low. David Warner's in everything, and Susanna Harker was House of Cards. So actually walking into the studio that day was incredibly intimidating. After that point, it's a bit harder to be intimidated. I don't think I've ever. Yeah, so even like going in to meet like Tom Baker or work with Tom Baker, you're kind of going in and doing a job. So it kind of takes the edge off it a bit, and I'm a bit used to it by now. I'm sure there will have been occasions, and though I'm slightly struggling to get a few of them off the top of my head, where you kind of notice it in a way. I remember there was a few that I had. I was doing the Foe from the Future. I gave a lift to I forgot his name now, but the guy who plays the main villain, and he's I was kind of describing the other story in the box set and Johnny Morris, the other writer, basically described it as being, I can't remember what it was, but something crossed with Raiders of the Lost Ark. And then I was about to say that, and then it's the realization of going, oh, but this guy was in Raiders of the Lost Ark. He's the villain in Raiders of the Lost Ark, and I can't reference Raiders of the Lost Ark to his face. That would be weird. Yeah, so it's moments like that. I wish I could remember his name. I'm absolutely drawing it back. Anyway, but yeah, he was great. And yeah, every now and then it's bits like that where you kind of realize, yeah, you kind of got someone sort of amazing. And then there are others where it's been like sort of in advance, because I remember like one of the things when you're an actor is you struggle to get car insurance a lot, not because they think your actors are inherently flippant or whatever, but they basically say you might give a lift to another actor who might be like on a big film, and the risk of injury, and I was thinking, oh, when would that ever happen? And then I was giving a lift to Hayley Atwell a few weeks before Captain America came out, and you go, oh no, that is Ario, isn't it? And she's delightful. So yeah, and I vaguely remember that because I didn't really know her work. I was going, oh, she seems very nice and will be famous, and kind of deserves to be, because she's genuinely nice, smart, sharp-edged. Yeah.
And one of my favourite box sets of the spin-off variety that you've done, which is Robots.
Yes.
What was it like writing for the robots? Because it's like, because it's not like, it's technically not similar to Doctor Who, but it is in many other ways.
I mean, yeah, that was I enjoyed that a lot. That was interesting to like sort of write in the new world, because Chris Boucher did such a strongly defined world that it was kind of just relatively easy to play within it, and a lot of the sort of the hard work from that had been done by Nick and Matt from doing Robophobia and Escape from Calvin. So it was sort of largely just going along with that and seeing where it went, and then just trying to find a way into the plot. That was for various reasons, the production that was a little bit hectic, or at least the initial stages of it. But I was kind of excited about it. I feel, in particular, the robots, I have a weird connection to, in that, like, it was one of the earliest stories I saw because I'm half Australian, and I remember seeing episodes 3 and 4 in Australia when I was like visiting my family there one time, and then the realization, like counting through the cast list, going, okay, well, I've worked with Pamela on a lot of things, and then Louise and Tom I've worked with, and Brian Crouch is a friend of a friend, and yeah, my first Doctor Who had David Bailey in, and but then the most significant one, my voice teacher at drama school was Greg DePolme, who was D84, which was one of the reasons why I was able to like get D84 back in, because I knew Greg, and so yeah, it was just one story where I felt I got a surprisingly wide amount of connections to, so I was able to enjoy doing the collection. So I only got to write 2, which is a bit of a shame. I kind of wouldn't have minded doing a few more, and I was always great, particularly I think again because you're getting to write for great actors, because Nicola and Claire are both terrific. Yeah. And it's one of the reasons why I ended up doing that story face to face, because I just thought, well, I've got these 2 actors, and let's see what I can make them do, and what can I do with just the 2 of them for an hour, and that's where that story came from.
And when writing them, do you have to, when you're writing the stories for robots, do you have to rewatch the episodes to remind yourself of how the robots actually speak and how it's spoken?
Initially, but after a while of doing it and like reading the scripts, that became sort of second nature. So if the first time I write for a Doctor or whatever, I would tend to rewatch something, but then it's almost like it gets locked, and I don't really feel I have to go back to it. I mean, there'll be things where I watch something just to remind myself of who someone is and their sort of the context of it. But with the robots in particular, what I'd always end up doing was, because it was so much a series of consequences, I would always like read the whole of the previous box set before then reading through whatever box set I was working on, just to make sure the flow was right. And yeah, that kind of impacted on it quite a bit. But yeah, the original TV episodes, not so much, because after a while it became its own sort of thing.
And when writing, just in general, just as a general thing, what type of thing do you use to inspire you? Because some writers, I know for a fact, listen to like film soundtracks to get them in the mood. What is your sort of like way of getting into the headspace of sitting down and doing the writing?
Oh, I mean, going to those spaces, it's normally a cup of tea. That's it. If I've made a cup of tea, now it's time to work. Whilst I sit there having a cup of tea. I mean, I used to have it like as a tea break, and then no, tea is what kind of powers me through. Inspiration wise, I just watch a lot of films, read a lot of books, go for long walks, because the actual typing of the script bit, I kind of don't need too much. It's just like, yeah, let's go straight for that. Coming up with the actual plot ideas and things like that. It's usually it is listening to music on long walks. The music I'm kind of familiar with, so I'm not entirely listening to it, but my brain is distracted enough that I'm not getting distracted by other things, because I'm very attention deficit.
And what is like your favorite film to watch to like give you some ideas of where you want to go with certain stories?
Oh, I don't know if films in particular. I don't think there's a specific one. I think it's kind of useful watching things that are quite sort of now and quite sort of zeitgeisty, both in film and TV, just because that can prompt you into kind of fresh new angles. There's broadly speaking no such thing as a new idea. It's usually just 2 old ideas matched together. So there can be a vibe of thinking, well, what if I took Doctor Who and smashed it into this program? And sometimes that's directly a kind of thing, but other times it's more sort of oblique. But yeah, I don't think there's anything that I specifically watch to get me into like a specific vibe of how I kind of direct stories. But generally speaking, it's just like being, very knees deep in stories at all points.
And for anyone that's watching this that might be wanting to get into writing scripts in general, or writing audio, what advice and tips and tools would you give someone?
There's a few. Give yourself deadlines. Even if you haven't got a deadline, the idea of having a specific deadline, be quite public about these things as well. Because if you're just doing it and you haven't told anyone you're doing it, it's very easy to stop doing it. Give yourself a brief if no one's given it. So, it's much easier to come up with a story about an elephant than just a story. Somebody says, tell me a story about an elephant, you'll start being able to tell ideas. But if you just say, tell me a story, you won't. But the two big ones I always say, which sound trite, is rule number one is start it, and rule number two is finish it. And they both sound like they are, but the amount of ideas you have that you never actually get onto paper is huge. And you can't make them or do anything with them if you've not written them down. And in particular, you can't do anything with them if you haven't finished them. We've all got ideas we've written some of. You've got to get to the end so you can send them out. Those are the big tips I have.
Yeah. And when what tools do you use to actually write your script? Do you go the old-fashioned method of pen and paper, or do you type on certain programs?
Oh, I'm usually on the iPad, and it varies. I think Word for scripts, Pages for script editing, Final Draft for other projects, because I find it helpful to kind of keep them demarcated to a degree. I used to do paper a lot, and that's potentially a good way of starting off. But because writing longhand and then you have to type it up, it means something about typing it up. It looks finished. You don't have to. Whereas if you've written it out, you then have to write the whole thing out again, and that helps you judge every single line and make sure it's all kind of fine. I got quicker when I was writing sketches for the radio. That kind of meant I had to be fast, and I began to cut out the middle stage of the process then, and then I feel that I've not had to do that ever since.
And do you believe that your skill as a writer has improved over the years, or do you reckon it's still the same?
Yeah. I definitely slicker at it. It's weird listening to some of the early ones, thinking, "Oh, this feels a bit." The first Saffron Steel one, I felt a bit slow when I listened to it last time, and I'd already I think I'd cut about 10,000 words of it quite late because it was massively overwritten. And so if it was massively over, how long was it? How slow would it have been in that initial parts? I feel that, I can get through things. I don't have to worry too much about the detail. At the same time, writing storylines is absolute hell on earth and always has been, and never gets any better. I've done over 100 of these things now, 120, 100, whatever it is, both Doctor Who and everything else. And coming up with the plot, working out the nuts and bolts of it, that I hate every single time. And it's kind of brain meltingly, blood sweating, and So some aspects, yes, I've got better. Other aspects, I'm still the same as I ever was.
And when working with Big Finish, do you go to them with an idea and they tell you they want you to write it or not? Or do they come to you and say, we've got this idea, would you be able to write it?
I mean, usually I get a brief. Usually the brief is kind of as vague as Doctor and Companion. Sometimes there's a bit more. Every now and then I'll suggest something. I think Monsters in Metropolis, I was asked for a Night Dog story, and nobody said Cybermen, but then I came up with an idea for a Cyberman story and said, can I do this? And they went with it, fortunately. And there's one I came up with recently where I had a good idea for a story with an old monster, and just emailed Matt saying, can I do this? And he went, yeah, I've got a slot going, you can do that. And every now and then that happens where you just have an idea and message it, and it gets to the right person, and they go, yeah, we've got a slot, you can use that. But at the same time, I've also got a big file of nominal ideas that I go, at some point I'll use that, at some point I'll use that, and just waiting for the right person to ask.
And with you doing multiple other ranges, not the Doctor Who, do you ever think that any of the other ranges you've done could ever cross over with Doctor Who, like a multimedia story?
None of the other ones I've worked on. I mean, most of the ones I've worked. I mean, the Avengers. The Avengers is too. I mean, I don't want to say down to earth because that's a very weird way of looking at the Avengers. But it's. I mean, I think you'd break the tone of almost any of them. Star Cops you couldn't do. Survivors would be weird as hell. I did think one I didn't work on that could work is Adam Adamant. I was quite tempted by the idea of trying to do a William Russell. Adam Adamant crossover with Gerald Harper, which would have been quite good fun, but that never came across. Never came about. I'm trying to think if there are any others that kind of leap at me. I feel that in my head there's at some point I thought of an idea for something that would make an entertaining crossover with Doctor Who, but not something we had the rights to, but just one of those things going, oh, that could be fun to do. But for the life of me, I couldn't tell you what it was right there.
Yeah. And if because a lot of fans, not a lot, but some of them on YouTube have been animating different Big Finish stories. Which out of the ones you've written yourself from scratch, which ones do you reckon would work really well, either as an animated production or as a live action thing on the telly?
Oh, that's an interesting one. Animated wise, I do think something like Buying Time and the Wrong Woman could work. Because I think that was, it's a question that gets asked, but I think most of the time they're written so consciously with audio in mind that I'm not sure animation would always work. Because there's certainly things where I would include something where you're going, I kind of don't want people to be able to visualize this. I think that's kind of could be a little bit scary. So like the Red Lady, I think would be really hard to do. Which given I think that someone, got a note on the storyline when I submitted to going, do you really think you could do a finale, which is just them drawing the paper and you go, yes, I know what I'm going to do. It'll be good. But yeah, others, I always thought that if I was going to like adapt one for TV or something else, it'd probably be something like, The Trouble with Drax. Just something like that where I think there's fun to be had, and I don't think it would necessarily, it's not so wedded on being audio. Not that I think it hasn't got bits in it that work better because it's audio, but yeah, I feel that it would probably be something along those lines. Maybe Solitaire, but I think with almost any of them, I'd have to do a fairly hefty rewrite. Because I think so they are really based and rooted in audio the majority of the time.
And you mentioned there the Red Lady part of Doom Coalition 1. And did you get to have your say in how you wanted the cover of that episode to look because it was written from your vision?
No, that kind of every now and then that kind of comes up where someone suggests something or kind of says, what do you think about this cover? Is this too spoilery? Or is this kind of roughly what you're thinking? Most of the time it's absolutely up to the artist. Every now and then what they've come up with is nothing like what I have in my head. And there's at least one time where I kind of go, oh mate, yeah, that's probably a bit off. But that kind of colours people's perceptions of it. But then to be fair, it's what they get from reading the script and what I've done. So I don't have much say or much influence in any of those things. And I think the Red Lady one, though, is what I remember is a pretty good cover that I'd got a lot of liking for, really. And yeah, like 95% of the time, if not more than that, the covers come through and it's just the most delightful thing imaginable. It's always really exciting the first time you see one of the covers. So yeah.
And how did you come about with the idea for the Red Lady? Because it's such an interesting concept.
I think it was largely influenced by kind of a few old short stories I've read. There's a couple of Stephen King's in there, like The Sundog, I think, and The Road Virus Goes North or something like that it's called. And also The Mezzotint by L.R. James. All of these things where there's something alive in a work of art. Also, I think there's I think it's an Orson Welles film, which it's called Three. Actually, it's not. If my brain is immediately going something like Three Tales of Terror, which I don't think it is, but there's one of those. It's an anthology of three things, and one of them involves a painting in an art gallery it's a painting of a house, and somebody gets trapped inside the painting. So it's all manner. There's a vague sense of it in the ether, and I thought, I quite feel something like that. And it's all things that kind of crept me out a bit when I was a kid, and kind of wanting to riff on some of those. I was getting to the point every now and then you're writing something. I haven't written a scary one in a while. Maybe I should do a scary one. And that's what I mean in terms of what I was saying about advice earlier, giving yourself a brief. So sometimes if the brief is completely right, Eighth Doctor story where this happens, I go, okay, I think I'll do a scary one. I don't think we've had a scary Eighth Doctor one for a while. Let's make a scary one. What's scary? Oh yeah, something that's kind of slowly malevolently coming towards you and is sort of defies comprehension. So yeah, aspects of that kind of fed into it. Again, that's the same thing I was saying about reading right things. You don't like copy it, but you've got these sort of almost like cultural landmarks in your head that kind of lead you into a new place, hopefully.
And was it fun to write this story? Because when you listen to it, you can feel that it's come from a love of horror and a love of it is Doctor Who, but it is also like really spooky.
Yeah, I mean, I remember having a good time. It was always slightly surprising to me that people found it as scary and terrifying as it was, because I had, a lovely time writing it. So bits like the professor's death with the phone call, where even like people were saying it was really, I was getting notes back on the script saying but this bit's really spooky. And go, oh, is it? Okay, great. I'll run with that. That sounds good to me. And yeah, if I remember rightly, the only bit I kind of really struggled with was, I think, Helen's opening scene, where I think I kind of wrote the first version of that, and just going, no, I didn't think this works, because I think her opening scene is she's having an argument with the bosses at the National Museum, and I think in the first draft, what they were saying was almost too rational and sensible. So she was coming over as a complete loony when she was trying to sort of argue back against them. And I go, no, she's got to be the sensible. So I I went back, and I don't think I even changed that much of her dialogue. I think I changed their responses. But that's the main bit I remember about writing that one. That I can remember bits and bobs of it and coming up with it, like a lot of them, because most of them, the actual scripting takes no more than a month, and there's often a bit of thinking times. But the actual scripting is no more than a month per hour, but maybe not even that. So it's a long time ago, but I get flashes of almost every story. I can kind of go, I remember writing this bit or something about the context of this bit, and but yeah, there's not massive detail on most of them.
And when you're writing the stories, because like majority of stories are an hour, how do you know when you finish the script that it is exactly an hour long?
Oh, I mean, it's a word count thing. We're kind of contracted to word count, and it's about 10,000 words. Most of the time they kind of nudge over, but as long as it's roughly in that ballpark, I think again, there's a few times when your instinct kicks in. I think something like the Burning Prince ones are a bit over 10,000 words, because I was very aware of how sort of frenetic that was. And we're going to go, this is going to be done at pace, so I imagine this is going to go quicker than 11,000 words will probably read as 10. But even with the work, I think it could be really variable. I think that there's something like I think Infamy of the Zaros and the second half of the Two Masters are about the same length word count wise, but they're about 20 to 30 minutes difference in actual performance. Because but you get used to it. With a lot of it, I don't think I'd be quite as stride as that, because you think, okay, if there are long speeches, that eats up more of the word count than, well, it's up the word count in a different way to yes, no, whatever, like one word things, where you're effectively getting one spoken word for every 2 words, whereas this is like, say, 50 words for spoken words for every 51 words. So being aware of how that kind of works. I think the thing that always helps me out is I've kind of got to a point where the storylines are kind of broadly precise, and about one page at the particular pagination I use is almost always 30 minutes. So if I do a 2 pages, I go, that's going to be an hour. If I'm writing a 2-hour one, which is the last one I've done, I'll go, that's going to be about 2 hours to 20,000 words, give or take.
So is it quicker to write an hour long piece than it is a 2 hour long piece?
Yes. I mean, I say that, not always. There are some hour long things that there's at least 1 2 hour long thing where it was needed quite quickly, and I had a lot of fun. So I wrote it quicker than a lot of things I've done that were like half the length. But that's usually the thing that kind of the level of connection with the story, and the amount of fun I'm having, and the amount of other things that are going on, and the pressures I've got on it, will kind of factor in. Weirdly, the more pressure, the quicker I can write it.
And is there a particular like story that you've written that you wish you had like gone back over again now thinking about it, and you want to rewrite a certain bits?
Oh, there are loads. Just little bits where there's at least one where there's a continuity error. There's one where I added an extra bit of peril that I thought I needed that just kind of feels massively redundant when I hear it. There are 1 or 2 of them where I'm a little uncomfortable with the politics of it, if anything. Not that I think I ever kind of went particularly bad on the politics, but there's just 1 or 2 where I'm going, maybe not so much now. A tiny bit cloth-eared and not really thinking these things through and being a bit patronising. But yeah, I kind of tend not to like to draw too much attention to them because, you know, if somebody doesn't hear it, then yeah, that's it. I don't want to spoil it for people. Kind of saying, yeah, look out for this bit. This bit's a bit rubbish. And also, I don't want to be so arrogant as to assume that my opinion on my own work is the most valid opinion. So if there's a bit which I don't think works, yeah, it might still work perfectly for somebody else, and they go, yep, you know, that's fair enough.
Yeah. And once like an audio is out, like a box set is out, do you go on and it's been out for quite some time? Do you go online and watch people like fans' reviews on your stories?
I mean, sometimes it's kind of hard to avoid them. Even if you're not looking, it's surprisingly easy to stumble across these things. People will usually tweet me if it's a positive thing. But I know, you know, I'm on some of the forums and occasionally will look. I do think it's kind of, I think it's important to be aware of a fan reaction, because it's your audience and it's kind of what you're going for, and you kind of ultimately without the audience you're nothing. At the same time, it's also important not to be too troubled by any of it, because you know it's everyone's opinion is basically valid, and a lot of the time you can't tell from context. So yeah, not everything is going to be for everyone, and I never particularly recommend focusing on anything specific. So yeah, it's not really a great thing to do, but then I think it's a weird combination. Yeah, useful to keep in touch with what the fans are saying, because you don't want to completely ignore it, because I think that's getting to a slightly problematic thing. If you're going to go, well, I don't care what they think, I've written my story and I'm releasing it to the world, and you're going, well, clearly you want them to listen to it and enjoy it. That would be, you know, and try to figure out what you did wrong as well if they don't. But at the same time, yeah, you don't want to be too beholden. So yeah, somewhere in the middle.
And now coming towards the end of this glorious, wonderful, and amazing interview, now is your time to promote any story that either is coming out, is out, or anything you want the viewers, the fans to know about what you're up to.
Actually, really, I mean, I think from the Doctor Who's, I mean, it's all pretty much there. I mean, I think the only one I can really talk about, well, yeah, the only thing I can talk about that isn't out yet is 24 Doors in December, which is the second, which is good. I like that one a lot. Very fond of it. It's got a nice conceit, which is probably broadly hinted at by the title. But that was fun to do. I might kind of reference the other things I've been doing. So I've been doing, well, I mentioned the 10K we're doing, which will probably, I don't know when this is out, but you know, we're doing it on the 10th of June. We're running for cancer research charities. And that's 6 of us doing it, and should be fun. Well, it won't be fun, it'll be horrible, but you know, we're doing well and raising a reasonable amount of money for charity there, which we're quite excited about as a group. Also, I've still got several episodes of the podcast I did with a couple of friends of mine, Tom Selinsky, who's written various audios, and Jess Regan, who's been in a few. We did a podcast called Best Pick, PICK, where we watched all the films that won Best Picture of the Oscars, and entirely recommend why most other people probably shouldn't do that, because it's only worth doing if you're absolutely determined to watch all of them, because really some of them are absolutely terrible. So yeah, so there's a book of that and a podcast of that with several episodes going, which I probably worth a look. Yeah, apart from that, all the regular Doctor Who standard stuff with many exciting things to come in the years ahead.
Well, thank you for letting me interview. Now, for viewers of the Tom Mason Empire, yes, I said Empire, that is correct. 17 YouTube channels and 12 podcasts and a couple of other bizarre things, is definitely an empire. Well, we've got some exciting stuff on the Tom Mason, this channel you're watching now, if you're watching the video version, coming out on Friday and Saturday. Woo! But other than that, you could check out my other interviews. Ooh, because that's special. There might be another one by the time this video's out. Who knows? Who knows? I do not, because I'm currently recording this one. So why would I know? I'm not a magician. Anyway, guys, thank you for watching. And remember, no, I've forgotten.